ॐ परतत्त्वे सदा लीनो रामकृष्णसमाज्ञया यो धर्मस्थापनरतो वीरेशं तं नमाम्यहम्. We are studying here Swami Vivekananda's Jnana Yoga, and the chapter we are reading is the freedom of the soul, and it is based upon Chandogya Upanishad, as Swamiji himself has told in the beginning, and half of it practically we have read. In this, Swamiji has shown that it is the ancient Upanishad, and the advantage is that we see the history of the evolution of spiritual consciousness and the ideas of heaven and all that is given up. A lot of it is still ritual in this Upanishad, but the advantage is that we get all the history of the development of spiritual ideas. And then, last idea reached was Advaita. Then Swamiji compares Dvaita, Vishtadvaita and Advaita and shows to us that one point is common in all of them, that the Atman is pure, blessed from the beginning. It may have become degraded, but that is its real nature. And this point Swamiji stresses and comes back to Advaita, to this point. And then he says that all religions are based upon this very point. So, comparing all religions together, Swamiji finds that his position is solidified. All religions accept that we have become degraded and we have to rise back. Now we come to the paragraph. Although all these systems agree so far that we had the empire. Empire means one's own nature. That is called Swarajya in Vedanta, my own kingdom. And so, all systems agree so far that we had the empire and that we have lost it. They give us varied advice as to how to regain it. He mentions a few of them. One says that you must perform certain ceremonies, pay certain sums of money to certain idols, eat certain sorts of food, live in a peculiar fashion to regain that empire. They are the Karmavadins. Another says that if you weep and prostrate yourselves and ask pardon of some being beyond nature, you will regain that empire. This is mostly Christian idea. Again, another says, if you love such a being with all your heart, you will regain that empire. So that is the idea in Bhakti schools of Vedanta. All this varied advice is in the Upanishads. So, we will find reference to this in the Upanishad itself. Now the special emphasis may be in Christianity, may be in Hindu devotional scriptures or Karma Kanda, but in this Chandogya Upanishad, or if you take all Upanishads together, we will get all these ideas. As I go on, you will find it so. That means when Swamiji proceeds in the Chandogya Upanishad, you will find this. But the last and the greatest counsel is that you need not weep at all. You need not go through all these ceremonies and need not take any notice of how to regain your empire, because you never lost it. So Swamiji comes back to Advaita position. Why should you go in to seek for what you never lost? You are pure already. You are free already. If you think you are free you are this moment. And if you think you are bound, bound you will be. This is what Sri Ramakrishna used to teach everybody. This is a very bold statement, and as I told you at the beginning of this course, I shall have to speak to you very boldly, because to take this high position requires courage, requires boldness. And Swamiji, starting of the Jnana Yoga itself, he has told this. It may frighten you now because of the strangeness, because I have not heard it, so it frightens us. Gaudapad says about the Patanjali yogis, yogino bibhyati asmat, abhaya bhaya darshana. But when you think over it and realize it in your own life, then you will come to know that what I say is true. So what is the upaya? Shravan Manan Nididhasan. So when you properly think about it, you will find that it is most rational. And if you can realize in your own life, then you will find that it is true. For supposing, now Swamiji gives the argument. For supposing that freedom is not your nature, by no manner of means can you become free. That is the most important point in Advaita. Suppose you were free, and in some way you lost that freedom, that shows that you were not free to begin with. If you are free by nature, nothing can act upon you. And if something is acting upon you, you are not free. And then you can never get freedom. It may appear like freedom, it will again go out. So that is the most important point, that our real nature is Brahman. Otherwise, how we will get Brahman? If we get something which is not our real nature, we will lose it also. As we get it, we will lose it. If you go to some loka, we will be pushed back. So, this is the Advaitic point, important point Swamiji is stressing here. Had you been free, what could have made you lose it? The independent can never be made dependent. If it is really dependent, its independence was a hallucination. So only it may appear as independent, it is not true. But if independence is real, then this dependence is an illusion. We must clear-cut understand this point. Of the two sides, so Swamiji is presenting two sides now. Very important point is this. Of the two sides, then, which will you take? If you say that the soul was by its own nature pure and free, 2 points I has mentioned, pure and free. Impurity we believe, generally. Impurity is in the mind, not in our real nature. Example given in the Vedanta is that in the desert, water appears, but the sand will never become moist at all. So the appearance cannot affect the reality. So pure, and then it is free. It naturally follows that there was nothing in this universe which could make it bound or limited. But if there was anything in nature which could bind the soul, it naturally follows that it was not free. And your statement that it was free is a delusion. So if it is possible for us to attain to freedom, from this is going. The conclusion is inevitable that the soul is by its nature free. It cannot be otherwise. Very clear, correct logic. Freedom means independence of anything outside. Not that we get only good and not get bad and like that. And that means that nothing outside itself could work upon it as a cause. So it is free, nothing can work upon it. The soul is causeless, and from this follow all the great ideas that we have in Advaita Vedanta. Causeless, that means it is not caused by something, it is not affected by something, it is not the cause of anything. It is causeless. Aja, Ajata is the name given. And from this follow all the great ideas that we have. That it is infinite, it is one without a second, it is Satchidananda. All these will follow once you know that it is causeless. You cannot establish the immortality of the soul unless you grant that it is by its nature free, or in other words, that it cannot be acted upon by anything outside. Then only it is immortal. So immortality is also established by this. For death is an effect produced by some outside cause. I drink poison and I die, thus showing that my body can be acted upon by something outside. That is called poison. That means death is of the body. Poison acts upon it. Poison can never act upon Atman, which is consciousness by nature. But if it be true that the soul is free, it naturally follows that nothing can affect it and it can never die. So deathlessness or immortality automatically follows. Not only that, otherwise immortality is impossible. Freedom, immortality, blessedness, Anandam by nature, all depend upon the soul being beyond the law of causation, beyond this Maya. Swamiji has explained this in chapter on Maya, that causation is in our mind. It is not in the reality. And so, of these two, which will you take? Either make the first a delusion or make the second a delusion. First means that freedom is a delusion. Second means bondage is a delusion. Certainly I will make the second a delusion. It is more consonant with all my feelings and aspirations. That is another important point. What do we aspire to become free? Because we are free. So Advaita philosophy is most satisfying, not only rational, but satisfying to my feeling. Emotion is a different thing. But it is in that way we say emotionally satisfying. Satisfies my feelings and aspirations. That is another point. Man aspires to be free. This aspiration finds fulfillment in Advaita Vedanta. So its fulfillment is not only rational, but from the feeling point of view and from the aspiration point of view. All these are satisfied there. I am perfectly aware that I am free by nature, and I will not admit that this bondage is true and my freedom is illusion. Because I feel that. So it is very clear that it satisfies all my aspirations. This discussion goes on in all philosophies in some form or other. Even in the most modern philosophies you find the same discussion arising. There are two parties. These days, recently I heard, in America, they said they have a new philosophy. And we see Swamiji is discussing that. And it is much older even than Swamiji. So, there is nothing new philosophy. Man's mind has limited capacity to think. And some unfortunate temporary thing has happened. Two students, brilliant, known to me, initiated devotees and all that. and their son is studying in America. Mathematics, he got big prizes and all that, awards. But that is a very different type of intellect. And his mother, when she kept Swami Vivekananda's book in his baggage, he removed it. So he has not seen Swamiji's thoughts. And he told them that we are a cog in the wheel. And we are cog in the wheel. That means we are destined to do this, that is why we have done this. We have no freedom whatsoever. And both of them have become influenced by that. And the father, my student, he met me for 1 hour and discussed all this. I heard him for 1 hour and then I told him this. If your matter, what you say is true. If your consciousness, all that you say is trash. That is what Swamiji is showing. Swamiji had entered a debate in American newspapers in Swamiji's time. And here in the Jnana Yoga chapter is clearly discussing that point. If you are matter, yes, you are bound. And if you are consciousness, no bondage can touch you. And what we are in our consciousness today, a peculiar mixture of consciousness and matter, Swamiji described in Maya chapters. So understand, these are two parties. One says that there is no soul, that the idea of soul is a delusion produced by the repeated transit of particles of matter, bringing about the combination which you call the body or the brain. That the impression of freedom is the result of the vibrations and motions and continuous transit of these particles. So this is the general statement of the bondage people. There were Buddhist sects who held the same view and illustrated it by this example. So the Buddhists philosophized this and they gave this example. What example? If you take a torch and whirl it around rapidly, there will be a circle of light. Halata. That circle does not really exist because the torch is changing place every moment. We are but bundles of little particles which in their rapid whirling produce the delusion of a permanent soul. The other party states that Gaudapada used this. Now that we are whirling and that makes a circle. Circle is not true. This much Buddhists are telling. Vedanta says you are seeing circle because of the whirling. Stop this vibration, you will see the light. Light is not false. False is the appearance of a circle. So all names and forms are illusory, but the reality is not involved in this. So Gaudapada has called that chapter as Alata Shanti. Shanti is not extinguishing that Alata, but keeping it steady. The other party states that in the rapid succession of thought, matter occurs as a delusion. Very important point. Nobody, Swamiji will tell, nobody can prove the external world. We experience. And because we experience variety, we assume there is an external world. But those who followed the lectures on Patanjali Yoga, Patanjali has clearly mentioned that by certain siddhis, by practicing concentration on certain points of the body, on the nose, you can get all the smells you want. On the Kantakupa, you can get all the tastes you want. So, no need of the external world at all. Then the mind is true. That mind also depends upon something to be felt by the mind. These two come together. And in this way, Gaudapada has shown the only thing real is the absolutely unchanging Satchidananda, which is our own real nature. The other party states that in the rapid succession of thought, matter occurs as a delusion and does not really exist. So we see one side claiming that spirit is a delusion and the other that matter is a delusion. Which side will you take? Of course you will take the spirit and deny matter, because as Swamiji said, it tallies with all my aspirations and feelings and reason. The arguments are similar for both. So Tarka cannot solve anything. Tarka can disprove a wrong thought. Tarka cannot show the reality, not at all. So if you go by argument, both are almost the same. Swamiji himself would vehemently argue one day that God exists, and the other day equal arguments he would produce to show God does not exist. Then he was asked point blank, what is your real opinion? He said, so long as desires are there, a doubt occurs about the existence of God. That is the psychological answer given by him. If you had no desires, you would have seen God. So, of course you will take the spirit and deny matter. The arguments are similar for both. Only on the spirit side the argument is a little stronger. He has shown the argument up till now. For nobody has ever seen what matter is. We can only feel ourselves. In the 7th mantra of the Mandukya Upanishad, Ekatma Pratyaya Saram. Atma Pratyaya. Nobody can deny that he exists. If I do not exist, who is talking? The experiencer of zero, he cannot be zero. If he is zero, all experiences are wrong. So there is stronger argument for the sake of consciousness. Therefore the argument is a little stronger on the side of the spirit. Secondly, the spirit theory explains the universe while materialism does not. That the universe is creation of God, that the universe is we perceive, this can be explained by Vedanta. Materialism, how can it explain the universe? Big Bang theory, all this theory, nothing is proved. Hence the materialistic explanation is illogical. First he says almost equal on both sides. Then he says stronger on this side. And second point, that means whether God exists or not. Second point is explain the universe. Materialism cannot explain the universe, while the Advaita theory can explain the universe. So that is illogical. So up till now he went on telling which side, and he has shown that the other side is illogical. If you boil down all the philosophies and analyze them, you will find that they are reduced to one or the other of these two positions. So here too, in a more intricate form, in a more philosophical form, we find the same question about natural purity and freedom. Here too means in this discussion whether we are really pure and free or not. One side says that the first is a delusion and the other that the second is a delusion, and of course we side with the second in believing that our bondage is a delusion. So shown both sides, one stronger and the other illogical, so we are reduced to this side. The solution of the Vedanta is that we are not bound, we are free already. Not only so, but to say or to think that we are bound is dangerous, it is a mistake. It is self-hypnotism. What we are not, if you go on thinking again and again, then our mind or consciousness changes and we feel. That is called hypnotism. Self-hypnotism. We are ourselves making ourselves believe like that. So it is dangerous, it is a mistake. As soon as you say, I am bound, I am weak, I am helpless, woe unto you. You rivet one more chain upon yourself. Do not say it, do not think it. I have heard of a man who lived in, now Swamiji is showing examples. They say that the taste of pudding is in eating. The best proof of Vedanta are the lives of those who have realized. And we have plethora of them. We have plenty of them. And having seen them, we can never deny their realization. Example. I have heard of a man who lived in a forest and used to repeat day and night, Shivoham, I am the Blessed One. And one day a tiger fell upon him and dragged him away to kill him. People on the other side of the river saw it and heard the voice so long as voice remained in him, saying, Shivoham, even in the very jaws of death. So death is for the body, that man is free. There have been many such men. There have been cases of men who, while being cut to pieces, have blessed their enemies. I am he, and so art thou. That is the beauty of the Advaita philosophy. I am Brahman and you are wrong is a very peculiar expression I have seen. I have seen the so-called Vedantists in their conference, Brahma Satyam, Jagat Mithya, you are all Mithya. Kivo Nava Brahma Iva Naparam, I am Brahman. Peculiar idea. But the real Vedanti, he is free, everybody is free. And if you are not feeling free, I shall help you to be free, feel that free. This is the real Advaita. I am pure and perfect, and so are all my enemies. So there is no distinction of enemy or friend in this matter. The reality of everybody is Brahman. That is the position of strength. Now, new points Swamiji has brought. What is true and what is not true gives a judgment. If it makes you weak, it is untrue. If it makes it strong, that is true. In this context, I would tell, many things these days have come by the name of positive thinking. Think positively. Can positive thinking come by some make-believe? There is only one way of positive thinking. I am Brahman. And whatever helps me in realizing that is positive thinking. I remember here my personal experience. In Belgaum, I was going to certain colleges and schools. The Swami in charge of arranging the program sat in my talk for about 10 minutes and then went away for his work. And after coming away, he said, what are you telling the students? Ishwar is potentially divine. I told him, change the speaker. Then when he got the feedback from the school that this is the best thought we have heard up till now, nobody had told this thought. Though they went on preaching positive thinking. And then when the other schools heard from the school, they wanted me to go and talk there. So, that is the positive thinking. I am Brahman, and whatever helps me to regain my kingdom is positive. Whatever takes me away from that is negative. Weakness is negative. Strength is positive. Love is positive. Hatred is negative. That's how we have shown in the Maya chapter. That is the position of strength. Nevertheless, no, Swamiji does not want to condemn all the thoughts like Dvaita, Vishta, Dvaita, etc. Nevertheless, there are great and wonderful things in the religion of the dualist. Wonderful is the idea of a personal God apart from nature, whom we worship and love. Sometimes this idea is very soothing. But, says the Vedanta, the soothing is something like the effect that comes from an opiate. Opium means take opium. Make a habit of taking opium, that man is called opiate. And it is very soothing because we forget the miseries for the moment and the misery is compounding upon us. Opium, drugs of that type, people get ruined. Once they take a small amount of drug, it goes on increasing. And then they become so weak. The soothing is something like the effect that comes from an opiate, not natural. It brings weakness in the long run. And what this world wants today, more than it ever did before, is strength. Whole world. It is weakness, says the Vedanta, which is the cause of all misery in the world. Weakness is the one cause of suffering. We become miserable because we are weak. We lie, steal, kill and commit other crimes because we are weak. We suffer because we are weak. We die because we are weak. Where there is nothing to weaken us, there is no death nor sorrow. We are miserable through delusion. Give up the delusion and the whole thing vanishes. It is plain and simple indeed. Whole thing vanishes. When the delusion is given, we shall not see the forms at all. We shall see consciousness only. Give up the delusion and the whole thing vanishes. It is plain and simple indeed. Through all these philosophical discussions and tremendous mental gymnastics, we come to this one religious idea, the simplest in the whole world. Advaita Vedanta does not require hundreds of logics. An artificial logic is built up for proving the other system. Vedanta is very plain and simple. The monistic Vedanta is the simplest form in which you can put the truth. To teach dualism was a tremendous mistake made in India and elsewhere. Because people did not look at the ultimate principle, but only thought of the process, which is very intricate indeed. So some process is there, so dualism. Process is intricate, so dualism. Process is intricate because our mind has become intricate. Truth is simple. If we can remove the intricacies of our mind, we shall realize the truth. To many, these tremendous philosophical and logical propositions were alarming. They thought these things could not be made universal, could not be followed in everyday practical life, and that under the guise of such a philosophy, much laxity of living would arise. That is another objection. I am Brahman may lead to laxity moral. I am Brahman when realized, has no place for immortality. This you, individual you, is the root of all criminology and laxity, immorality, all rise from the individual I. If I am the universal reality, how can there be anything wrong? But I do not believe at all that monistic ideas preached to the world would produce immorality and weakness. On the contrary, I have reason to believe that it is the only remedy there is. If this be the truth, why let people drink ditch water when the stream of life is flowing by? If this be the truth, that they are all pure, why not at this moment teach it to the whole world? Why not teach it with the voice of thunder in every man that is born? To every man that is born, to saints and sinners, men, women and children, to the man on the throne and to the man sweeping the streets. So that is the work which Swamiji has done. That is the work which Sri Ramakrishna asked Swamiji to do. And that is what we chant in the beginning, Dharma Sthapana. Sri Ramakrishna Sama Gaya, Yo Dharma Sthapana Rata. So, that is the work which Swamiji has done. And that is the work which the followers of Swami Vivekananda are required to do. It appears now a very big and a very great undertaking. To many it appears very startling, but that is because of superstition, nothing else. Because we have made our sanskaras like that, so it has become like that. By eating all sorts of bad and indigestible food, or by starving ourselves, we are incompetent to eat a good meal. Both sides. Wrong food we are taking or starving. Our system breaks down and we are unable to digest plain food. We have listened to words of weakness from our childhood. You hear people say that they do not believe in ghosts, but at the same time, there are very few who do not get a little creepy sensation in the dark. So, that belief in the ghost has entered our marrows. It is simply superstition. So with all religious superstitions, there are people in this country, England, who if I told them there was no such being as devil, will think all religion is gone. That is another idea. Fear of God and love of God, fear of God and knowledge of God. Fear of God is not going to solve our problem. It may be all right for the lowest type of humanity, who have to be kept under control by the police. But anybody who wants to rise higher, this fear of God is of no use. God is my reality. Shall I be afraid of my reality? God is nearest of the near to me. Nearest of the near is dearest of the dear, tells Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So they want a devil. Many people have said to me, how can there be religion without a devil? How can there be religion without someone to direct us? How can we live without being ruled by somebody? Devil and God, both. We like to be so treated because we have become used to it. We are not happy until we feel we have been reprimanded by somebody every day. Somebody asked me in a school by the Christian influence. He asked me what is the difference between God and devil. If we do not do what the devil wants, he punishes us. If we do not do what God wants, he punishes us. What is the difference? I told him, first of all, the very idea of devil is wrong. Secondly, God punishes us, idea is wrong. Thirdly, God, suppose He punishes us not for not obeying Him, but for we will get bad results, so God is scolding us. A mother loves her child, and when the child is putting his hand in fire, she may even slap him, scratch the hand, throw him out to save him from that. But the devil is not happy because of his selfishness. So if at all you believe in devil is only the Maya. It is in our own mind. And so, this comparison does not stand at all. Good people get angry on us many times. That is simply because they want to save us from falling into the ditch. I hope I am not digressing. Let me tell something in our common behavior. Parents or teachers. They say, we try to explain lovingly, but when the child does not agree, shall you not be angry? I said, you can be angry. You can even beat him. But the words you used, I have noticed. If a child puts his hand in fire, you say, don't put it. He still puts it. Then you shout on him, you are not listening to me, this is devil. And if you shout on him, Arey, bad will happen to you, don't do that, that is God. So the words you use show which party you are to. मेरी बात नहीं सुनता, that is the devil. अरे तेरा नुकसान हो जाएगा, that is God. So, that is how, now see the difference. Very wrong thoughts entered Arjuna's mind in war, before the war began. And Shri Krishna condemned those thoughts and said, this does not befit you. He never condemned Arjuna. Those thoughts are wrong, but they do not befit you. That is what saved Arjuna from that. So, that is the way for the teachers or parents. The same superstition, but however terrible it may seem now, the time will come when we shall look back and each one of us and smile at every one of those superstitions which covered the pure and eternal soul and repeat with gladness, with truth and with strength, I am free. I was free and always will be free. Repeat with gladness, with truth and with strength. This monistic idea will come out of Vedanta, and it is the one idea that deserves to live. The scriptures may perish tomorrow. Whether this idea first flashed into the brains of Hebrews or of people living in the Arctic region, nobody cares. For this is the truth, and truth is eternal, and truth itself teaches that it is not the special property of any individual or nation. Another point here. Many people, we Hindus, we discovered this first. Are we following that is the question. Who discovered it first or second is not the question. Truth is eternal. Truth is not any Hindu's property. Truth is not anybody's property. Truth is eternal. And so, a wrong ego on the basis of truth being discovered in our country will ruin us. Similarly about all countries. And truth itself teaches that it is not the special property of any individual or nation. Men, animals and gods are all common recipients of this one truth. That is Advaita. Let them all receive it. Why make life miserable? Why let people fall into all sorts of superstitions? I will give 10,000 lives if 20 of them will give up their superstition. That is the bold statement. Because this life is nothing. There is a passing show. I will give 10,000 lives if 20 of them will give up their superstition. Not only in this country, that is England, but in the land of its very birth, India. If you tell people this truth, they are frightened. They say this idea is for sannyasi, to give up the world and live in the forest. For them it is all right. But for us poor householders, we must all have some sort of fear. We must have ceremonies and so on. So you have ceremonies or anything, but you must have the... Sri Ramakrishna said, tying Advaita knowledge in the corner of your cloth, do whatever sadhana you can do. So the basic conviction of Advaita is essential. In practice you can follow any path, provided you have the basic convictions of Advaitism. Otherwise they are falling into the superstition. Dualistic ideas have ruled the world long enough, and this is the result. Why not make a new experiment? It may take ages for all minds to receive humanism. That is Swamiji knows. But why not begin now? If we have told it to 20 persons in our lives, we have done a great work. There is one idea which often militates against it. It is this: it is all very well to say I am the pure and the blessed, but I cannot show it always in my life. That is true. The ideal Andari, Swamiji telling now, I cannot show it always, so I preach something different. That is true. The ideal is always very hard. Every child that is born sees the sky overhead very far away. But is that any reason why we should not look towards the sky? Highest ideal. Not failure but lower aim is crime. Would it mend matters to go towards superstition? If we cannot get nectar, would it mend matters for us to drink poison? Would it be any help for us? Because we cannot realize the truth immediately. To go into darkness and yield to weakness and superstition, it requires perseverance. I have no objection to dualism in many of its forms. I like most of them. That which brings us nearer to God is always good. But I have objection to every form of teaching which inculcates weakness. That is the main point. This is the one question I put to every man, woman or child. When they are in physical, mental or spiritual training, are you strong? Physical, mental or spiritual training, are you strong? Do you feel strength? For I know it is truth alone that gives strength. Because it is truth, so it gives strength. I know that truth alone gives life, and nothing but going towards reality will make us strong. Going towards reality. The struggle itself will make us strong. And none will reach truth unless he is strong. Kenopanishad, Nayam Atma Balahinena Labhya, Atmana Vindate Viryam, Vidyamrutam Ashnute. Our real nature itself is the source of strength. But we have to culture it to get the result of immortality. That is the Kenopanishad. Going towards reality will make us strong, and none will reach truth unless he is strong. Every system, therefore, which weakens the mind, makes one superstitious, makes one mope, makes one desire all sorts of wild impossibilities, mysteries, and superstitions I do not like. Because its effects is dangerous, such systems never bring any good. Such things create morbidity in the mind. Disease. Make it weak, so weak that in course of time it will be almost impossible to receive truth or live up to it. Almost, because man is potentially divine, so he will rise. Strength, therefore, is the one thing needful. Strength is the medicine for the world's disease. Strength is the medicine which the poor must have when tyrannized over by the rich. Strength is the medicine that the ignorant must have when oppressed by the learned. And it is the medicine that sinners must have when tyrannized over by other sinners. Saints never tyrannize anybody. Sinners are tyrannized by other sinners. They will require strength. And nothing gives such strength as this idea of monism. Nothing makes us so moral as this idea of monism. Nothing makes us work so well at our best and highest as when all the responsibility is thrown upon ourselves. So in the work field also, don't think it is not practical. After this only, the series continues into Swamiji's practical Vedanta which we read. Don't think that for practice it is not practical. This itself makes us expert in every department in which we work, to our best capacity. When all the responsibility is thrown upon ourselves, not that some God comes and gives you this and He gives you that. When you are responsible, you work properly. I challenge every one of you. How will you behave? An example Swamiji is given. How will you behave if I put a little baby in your hands? Your whole life will be changed for the moment. Whatever you may be, you must become selfless for the time being. You will give up all your criminal ideas. As soon as responsibility is thrown upon you, your whole character will change. So if the whole responsibility is thrown upon our own shoulders, we shall be at our highest and best. When we have nobody to grope towards, no devil to lay our blame upon, no personal God to carry our burdens, when we are alone responsible, then we shall rise to our highest and best. Swamiji by his lecture itself is raising the minds. I am responsible for my fate. I am the bringer of good into myself. I am the bringer of evil. I am the pure and blessed one. We must reject all thoughts that assert the contrary. Now Swamiji is quoting from Shankaracharya's Nirvana Shatkam at the end. I have neither death nor fear. I have neither caste nor creed. I have neither father nor mother, nor brother, neither friend nor foe, for I am existence, consciousness and bliss absolute. Satchidananda Rupa Shivom Shivom. I am the blissful one, that is Shivom. I am the blissful one, Shivom Shivom. I am not bound either by virtue or vice, by happiness or misery. Pilgrimages and books and ceremonials can never bind me. I have neither hunger nor thirst. The body is not mine, nor am I subject to the superstitions and decay that come to the body. I am existence, knowledge and bliss absolute. I am the blissful one, I am the blissful one. Thus says the Vedanta. Thus says the Vedanta is the only prayer that we should have. Prayer means assertion of real nature, that's all. This is the only way to reach the goal, to tell ourselves and to tell everybody else that we are divine. That as we go on repeating this, strength comes. He who falters at first will get strength, stronger and stronger. And the voice will increase in volume until the truth takes possession of our hearts and courses through our veins and permeates our body. That is the manana. Delusion will vanish as the light becomes more and more effulgent. Load after load of ignorance will vanish, and there will come a time when all else has disappeared and the sun alone shines. So this is the way Swamiji has finished the London series of lectures on Jnana Yoga. From next time we'll have the New York series of lectures. So, going down to that Swamiji, who has inculcated this spirit of Advaita Vedanta and given us strength to rise to our highest. Om Paratatve Sada Lino Ramakrishna Samagya Yo Dharma Sthapana Rato Viresham Tam Namamyaham. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.